How's it going, ScrubGamers? Welcome back to another video here at ScrubGames, and today we're back with another bit of Star Wars Unlimited content for you guys, and it's once again another discussion video, and this time we're on the second of our kind of little videos about understanding how to build each of the leaders in the game from the first set. Because with the first set and with the two pre-release leaders, well, the starter deck and pre-release leaders being Luke and Vader, we have 18 leaders in total, and there's a lot of different ways you can build it because you can build them with different, like 4 different aspect combinations, and you can just do so much with so few leaders, which is great. So I thought it'd be handy to do an understanding how to build series over each of the leaders and help you out, so that way you can understand how to build them. Now, if you're looking for lists, unfortunately you will not find those here. We're just not going to go over lists. We're just going to go over to help you understand how to build it and what the best way is to build it for you, how you like it, and how you feel the leader should be built. So if you're interested, stay tuned, and before we get into the video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It keeps you updated with my videos as and when they drop, and even by clicking the notification bell, you can get alerts when my videos do drop, so you can watch them there and then, or at a later time that suits you. So with that out of the way, let's go through and have a look and see, and help you understand how to build Iden Versio. So looking at the leader, this is what the leader does. So we have the front side of the leader, or the leader when it's in the leader area, being sideways, and then when it is deployed, when you hit 6 resources, it comes into play, and we're going over this. So when it's just when it's in the leader area, so remember, leaders are always in play, but then they can deploy at a certain point using the epic action when you've got a certain amount of resources, and for Iden, that's when you come to 6 resources. So not too bad. You can always make that a little bit earlier using ramp as an option, and also it deploys not too late but not too early. It does have a really nice action ability, so you basically tap the leader itself, and then if the enemy unit was defeated this phase, you heal 1 damage per phase. It's got like a bit of healing. That's kind of in tone with blue, or as it's called in the game, the aspect is Vigilance. Then it allows you to like kind of heal, like last a bit longer, which is really nice. Iden's a very good one in the meta so far, because it helps deal with Boba and Sabine being like the more control and aggro decks in the format. It helps deal with it, like control the game and survive longer due to its healing. Now, when you do get the 6 resources, you can then deploy her into the ground arena. And she comes in at 6 resources, comes in only not the best stats, being 4/4, but she does come in shielded, meaning that when she comes into play, she gains a shield, meaning that she's protected from damage once due to the shield. So when she would take damage the first time, the shield will drop off instead of the damage. And now she's got the same kind of ability where when a unit is defeated, she heals damage to base, but it's not a one-turn use, because remember, with the action ability, you have to tap herself. I mean, you can only use it once per turn, because unless you can untap her, which is not really any ways to do that, you can heal damage. So when she's deployed into the arena, she can heal more damage than if she was just in the leader area. So while the stats aren't great, she does offer a really nice thing, because with the stats aspect she has, which is Vigilance blue and Villainy black, she can you have access to a lot of kind of removal, which means you can keep taking out your opponent's units and healing damage. You can last longer and push through. And do remember that when leaders are deployed and played into the ground arena, they come in like ready to use, ready to swing. And now we're going to go over and look at the different color combinations, well, aspect combinations. So there are different aspect combinations. Remember, you get access from aspects due to your leader and base. So you get 2 from your leader, being either Villainy and Heroic, and then one of the one of 4 aspects you got. So straight away from the leader, we get access to Villainy and Vigilance as our aspects. And what's that important about is because remember, you can play any cards you want in your deck, but then the aspects are important, because if you don't have any aspects that match on your leader and base on the card you want to play, you get a aspect penalty, and you have to pay 2 more resources than the normal cost of the card to play it. So if you have a free cost that doesn't have a matching aspect, you've got to pay an extra 2 for each aspect that doesn't match. So if you have a item with a command base and you want to play an aggression card that's just aggression, you have to pay an extra 2 on top of its cost. So it's a free cost, you have to pay 5 for that card. So picking what aspects you want on your base and leader are essential for making sure you're not penalized on costs for cards to play out things like on curve and properly. So with Iden, we start off with Villainy and Vigilance. So then we've got 4 other different combinations we can have depending on our base. We can either go for double Vigilance, we can go for command, aggression, or cunning. Now we're going to go through and have a look and see what the benefits of each of these color combination, aspect combinations are, so that way you can pick how you want to play and how you want to build item. But before we do, we also just have a little talk about ratios as well, because it is important to understand ratios about when it's best to put in a card at 1 copy, 2 copies, or 3 copies, because you can have a maximum of 3 copies of any card in your deck. So you can have a maximum of any. There's no limit to any copies currently in the game, so you can have a maximum of 3 of each. But you want to maybe understand why it's beneficial to put 3 copies of a card, why it's beneficial to put 2, and maybe why you might put 1 copy. So we got these examples of some cards in the ratios that you probably would put them in the deck. So Inferno 4, we normally have this as a 3 of, and this is a good example of why you would want like a card you would want to put as a 3 of, because it's a great turn 1 play being the 2 costs, because remember when you start this game off, when you start the first turn, you have 2 resources to use. It's got very nice stats, being 1, 2, 3 for a 2 cost, and it's also got a pretty nice effect that triggers both when played and when defeated to help you like scry and look at the top of your deck to kind of like filter through your deck to kind of find things as quick as possible. Now, this is an example of a card you want to put 3 of, cards you want to see often, and cards you want to see quickly, so that way you can play them out and that have decent stats and decent effects to help you out with the game. Now we have a 2 of, like Avenger, we've marked down as a 2 of. This is a good example of a card you might want just 2 of in your deck. You can always side a 3rd copy or extra copies of the card in your side deck if you feel like you might want them for other games. Because remember, you can side one because it's the best free game. It's one of the benefits of this game being best of 3. And for Avenger, this is a good example of a 2-1 because it's a very high costing card at 9 resources, meaning if you're not ramping, the earliest you're bringing this out is turn 8, which is a long way down the road and a lot of turns to get through. And if you draw it early, you're not going to be able to play it, are you? Because it's 9 costs, so it's not the greatest to have early. But you do want it for the later games because it's got a very strong effect. It's got very good stats, 8-8, and it's got a very good effect that also is when on play or when attacking. So this kind of card you might want 2 of, so that way you don't see too many early in the turn, so you have to resource them, and can hopefully see them in the later turns, so you can actually start playing them and make use of them. And then it comes down to our 1 copy of a card. So like 1 copy is a card. When you put cards with 1 copy in, they're normally like tech choices that you kind of don't care if you don't see, but if you do see them, they can help. Or even then, if you do see them and they're not helpful, you can always charge them. So things like Delmico, a card that's got pretty decent stats, but its effect is very situational, meaning that each event an opponent plays costs 1 more. Sometimes you might go against a deck that doesn't play events or doesn't play many, where it's not going to be useful. And in that situation, it's perfect for if you don't see it, you don't really care because it's not going to be useful, but if you do see it, you can always resource it if you do find it. So like tech choices and that, things you think might be handy in the first game against a certain matchup could be useful, but if you then see it, you can always charge it, are good examples of like tech choices and one-offs you want to put in. So that is the bit of our issues. If you want me to explain a bit more or have any questions about this in the comments, remember to do comment down below, and I'll help out as best as possible. But that should hopefully explain around ratios about if you should have 3 copies or 2 copies, 1 copy of a card in the deck. So now we're going to color combinations. We start off from the top order, so we're going to start from the order they can normally show off in the card game, which is like Vigilance, Command, Aggression, Cunning. So we'll go for double Vigilance, because this is probably one of the best ones to talk about and one we can go over quite quickly. So with double Vigilance, there are 3 cards in each color combination or each aspect that have double aspects, where they have 2 of the same aspects on them. They all have the same kind of thing where they have 1 event, like here we got Vigilance, which is an event named after the name, an event card, which has the name of the aspect. That has some pretty good effects, and each one has 3 cards that have double aspects in that you can make use of that kind of give you a benefit of running a double aspect. Because the thing with double aspect is while you lose access to a second color, so you have a slightly smaller card pool because you're locked to just 1 color without being penalized from the aspect penalty. But then you have access to these pretty strong cards, and this is what you have if you go double Vigilance, so double blue. So like with the bases, every aspect so far has 3 bases, 2 bases that are basically just vanilla bases with 30 HP, and then each one's got a rare base that has slightly less HP, being at 25 instead of 30, but have an epic action, which is the action you can use once per game to give you a nice little benefit. So you sacrifice a little bit of health for an action, for like an effect you can use once per game that can be pretty strong. And for Security Complex, which is what the one is for blue, you have the epic action to give a shield token to a non-leader unit. So it won't affect putting on an item, but anyway, she comes in shielded anyway when she deploys. But you can give any of your units, be it a space unit or ground unit, like a shield once a game. So that can be really handy, but then you got to think about, do you want to sacrifice that 30 HP, which might be handy against aggro decks, to gain a shield on the unit, because it could benefit something early, that like protect something early from being like taken out by like battle, It won't stop it by an effect, but it's stopped by any damage. Or do you want to have it to use for when you get later and you start dropping some big things to give it a shield to them even more protected? Now that's up for you to decide which one you prefer, because that does come down to personal preference. And then you get access to these 3 different cards, being Bendo, being a very high costing, very strong, decent stats unit that has Sentinel to protect your base and every units in that ground arena from being selected as a target for attack. And also a nice little effect where when he attacks, you can make the next non-heroic or non-villainy card you play in that phase cost 2 less. You also have Protector, which is a very nice upgrade, which allows you to give an extra boost in stats by 1/1 to a unit, but also give it Sentinel, meaning you can use it to make something be able to protect your base or other units, but not quite a strong card. And you have Vigilance as your event being a 4 cost, so it is a bit costly at 4 cost, but then all the events like this in the double aspects are 4, and it allows you to use any 2 actions of the 4 on the card. So you can either mill your opponent 6 cards, which isn't the best considering mill isn't really an alt win, because if you do mill your opponent out, they don't lose immediately. They then start taking damage on their base, 3 damage for every card they couldn't draw. So milling out is not the best option or an alternate win in this game. So you might not might not be useful, but the other ones are pretty nice because you've got heal 5 damage from a base. So heal 5 is quite a bit, so you can make it so you can last longer and defend and play the game a little longer to try and come out on top. You also can defeat a unit with 3 or less remaining HP, so you can either take out little things, or you can even damage something so then it can be taken out with this. And the other option, and the last one, is you can give a shield token to your units, the same as like Security Complex, it's like giving some protection to a card to prevent the next amount of damage it would take. So while you do sacrifice a whole extra, like a larger card pool in extra color by using double vigilance, you do have access to these 3 strong cards. So if you want to play double vigilance, that's what you got for as the main options to benefit from just having 1 color. And now we'll go on to the other ones. So now we have Command. This is easily one of the currently one of the strongest combinations to go Vigilance, especially for the leader on the dark side. And the bases you have is once again 2 vanilla bases that is 30k, and you have a 1 rare base that has 25 health and an epic action. And the one for Command, being green, is Energy Conversion Lamp, which has a very strong epic action, and that is to play a unit with a cost 6 or less from your hand and give it ambush for this phase. Now that's strong in many ways, but remember with this, you still have to pay the cost of the card. So the card you play off this action epic actually you still have to pay the cost of, so you still have to pay whatever the cost of the card is, you have to pay it. And it gives ambush, which means you can attack a unit as soon as it comes into play. So normally when you play a card, it comes in rested, so it comes in exhausted, so you can attack with it, but ambush lets you play it ready and able to attack into a unit. Now you can't attack a base with ambush, you can only attack a unit, so if your opponent's got nothing in the arena to ambush, like an attack with that unit, you don't make use of it, so you got to make sure to save this when you want to take out something in that same arena that you've played a card in to take it out or attack it. So do remember that if you do ambush, you can't attack a base straight away, you can only attack a unit straight away. There's a difference. And then along with having this pretty strong base and good color combination, you have access to some really powerful cards in the dark side of green as well. Like the dark side for Command is very strong. Like you have Super Laser Tech as a good ramp out, like a ramp unit that when he dies he ramps into your energy inactive. You got Darth Vader as a very good ambush unit, it can help you play more things with very solid stats. And also one thing about the dark side is it does have a lot of big units that you can play that are very strong, like Relentless here, which is a very expensive unit but very good stats. That makes it so the first unit event your opponent will play loses all abilities, so it becomes basically useless. So they can play an event. The first one they play for a turn has nothing. It does nothing. You have Devastator being a 10 cost, probably one of the most expensive units in the game, with one of the strongest units in the game as well, being 10/10. Has Sentinel to protect your base, and Overwhelming does piercing damage, so anything it attacks, any damage left over goes to your opponent's base. And it takes out something, does at least 10 damage to anything when it comes in, when it was on play. And then lastly, you have access to one of the strongest events in the game, being Overwhelming Barrage. It's a very nice card. It is costly at 5 energy, or 5 resources, but it gives an extra 2/2 boost to a unit, making them 2 stronger and 2 bulkier, and then allows that card to then do damage to your opponent's board, however you choose, like divide it as however you choose amongst a unit equal to its power. So you make a unit stronger, and then according to that unit's now attack stat, you can deal that much damage to your opponent's units in any way you want. So you can deal a bit to each arena, doesn't matter which arena, but you can just basically spread that damage, power out as damage to your opponent's board, which is very, very powerful. And then just a normal side of command, because remember there is for each command, each aspect there is the dark side, the light side, and then then basically just the neutral side of any aspect. And in this aspect, you still have some pretty good ones that are not dark or heroic, and or not dark or light. And you have Consortium Starbuck being a very good space unit, which very good stats. That if you got the initiative, it allows you to get a bit of heal, which is very nice. Healing your base that lasts longer is quite cool. You've got Steadfast Battalion being a really nice card that you can combo with Energy Conversion Lab, because when you got your leader out, which with shielded, it's going to be quite sticky and be able to stay around a little bit. It allows you to kind of bring in something that's very strong to ambush and take out a unit, because on attack it allows you to give, as long as you control a leader unit, give 2/2 to a friendly unit's phase. It can choose itself because it doesn't say other friendly unit, just friendly unit. So it can give it yourself, and making itself a 7/7 that can ambush with Energy Conversion Lab. It's really nice to be able to take out most leaders in the game as soon as they deploy. You have access to a very strong big unit, being Reinforced Smoker. A very nice one for later on in the game that when played or when attacks. Either draws you a card, or makes you discard top card of your deck and heal 3 damage, which is really nice. And it's got pretty good stats in 6/9, so it's very bulky and hits quite hard. And then you've got some really nice non-unit cards like Upgrade, Traitorous, which allow you to, if your opponent's like loading up upgrades or powering up a small unit, you can take control of it. Or Resupply being another card of the 3 ramp options you have in Command. So Command is the more ramp heavy deck, allowing you to get your more resources so you can play bigger things. And Resupply, and it has 3 ones being Resupply, Laser Technician, and also Super Laser Technician, and also Command being its double aspect. So it has 3 cards in that aspect to ramp, and you get access to 2 of them being the dark side if you go commands. This is probably one of the more popular aspect combinations people use for Iden, but you can always decide with yourself what you want to do. Then we move on to aggression. So aggression, not like the name, is not really about aggro, like it is about being aggressive, but not being like aggro, being like hit hard. It's more aggressive in terms of like it's just chucking out damage at units and like taking things out, like being aggressive with its damage. And now for this, once again, it gets 2 bases that are just vanilla 30Ks, and the rare base that is 25k for aggression is Tarkin Town, which is epic action, allows you to deal 3 damage to a damaged non-leader unit. So that's nice. So it doesn't just do 3 damage to a non-leader unit, it just has to be to a damaged one. So you can always just, if you damage something, you can then finish it off with this, which is a nice way. So like if you just can't quite finish off a unit, Tarkin Town can help you do that, as long as it's not a leader. And being a dark side, you have very good ones, and you have access to a fair few force units in this, which is quite nice. So it gives you a very few force benefits. Like there's like quite a few good force guys. Like you can see we've got 5th Brother, 7th Sister, and Upper Palpatine, like ranging from like quite cheap units to quite large units that have good effects. You also have very good space units like Imperial Center might come in at 4, which is costly, but it's decent stats, 3/2. And it can take things out without even attacking, whether it's when played, it allows you to do 3 damage to a space unit, potentially take something out, or even just damage something enough that you can finish it off, or make it in range for Tarkin Town to finish off. Then you got 5th Brother being a nice one that you can just basically put out damage. Good stats for a cheap cost. And when it attacks, it deals damage to itself and 1 damage to a unit, which you might think is not great, doing damage to yourself, but then it's got a effect which allows it to give a raid 1 for each damage on them. So the more damage he has, the stronger he swings for. And you got 7th Sister being a really nice one, quite costly in 5, but then good stats at 3/6, so quite bulky and decent damage. And it's got a very nice effect where when it deals combat damage to a base, you get to deal 3 damage to a unit on the ground arena, which is going to easily be done because it has Saboteur, meaning it can ignore Sentinel and shields when it swings. So you can ignore Sentinels trying to protect your base, and you can just ignore that and go straight to the base to trigger that effect. Then you got Palpatine being a very costly one at 8, but it does have a nice, as long as having good stats, it has when played allowing you to deal 6 damage as you choose, divided amongst your opponent's units. So like overall in Barrage, where you can basically just put damage out across equal to the power, this does a static 6, whereas overall Barrage can be like lower or higher depending on what you choose. And then you got Force Choke, being a nice removal event. Does get cheaper if you've got a Force unit, so unfortunately Iden's not a Force unit because you got units you can play that are Force to make it a little bit cheaper, but still 2 costs is not too bad. It allows you to deal 5 damage to anything that's not a vehicle, so not like a machine, like a vehicle. But when you do that, your opponent draws a card to compensate for the fact you probably took something out. And then on the non-dark side of red, you got some pretty nice cards as well. Like you got Sabling Fangfighter being something that can help take out upgrades, be like upgrades like that count as shields, as experience tokens, just upgrade cards, like things any upgrade like shields, experience, or upgrade card, you can take off a unit, which is quite nice and good stats for its cost. You got Patrician Insurgent, which is a pretty good early turn bulky unit that where you got more aggressive units on, get stronger when it swings. Wolf is a good way to counter people trying to heal, and plus having Saboteur to not worry about Sentinel, and it both gets the denial of heal from its when played or on attack as well. So when you play it, you can stop bases from healing, and when it ever attacks, you can stop things from healing bases on the on that turn. You also have some good events, being Open Fire allow you to do 4 damage for the cost of 3 resources, or Mission Briefing allow you to choose a player and draw 2 cards. And you might be thinking, why would you choose a player? But just remember, you are a player in the game. There are 2 players in a match, at least in single player, where you can choose your opponent or you can choose yourself to draw 2 cards. This is like a pot of greed, just it costs 3 resources. So that's red, so hopefully that's the more like aggressive in terms of damage focus. If you want to go for that, it's still a good option. If you want to try that, that's some of the good options. Remember, these are not all the cards you can use, but there's some solid choices I'm just showing you for this. Then we got the last one being Cunning. Now this is not the best one that goes really with Vigilance or just with Vigilance in general, but it has access to some really interesting cards, pretty nice ones as well. And its rare base you can get access to, as well as like the 2 vanilla ones, is Jeddah City. So for this rare one, the epic action you get by giving it 5 health is to give a non-linear unit -4 power for the phase. So you can make something a little bit weaker, mainly so you cannot take as much damage from that attack card when it attacks either a unit or a base, or make it so you can attack something big that hits back hard by reducing its power, so you can then kill it without taking as much damage back and not have to worry about losing a unit to it. But along with that, on the dark side of Cunning, you get access to some pretty nice cards. So you get access to some pretty nice space units, being like Cartel Spaces, something that can control by tapping things down, or 7th Fleet Defender, being quite good stats for it, but comes in shielded protect, so there's like Iden comes in shielded. And then you got some good ground arena, but like Boba Fett being one of the best legendaries, probably second newest expensive legendary in the game so far, being a very cheap unit, but very good stats, being like a free cost with 3/5 for its stats. And on attack, if something's been in around for a turn is arrested, you can do a bit of damage. You can like kind of like attack things that are like bulkier than normal if they've been around for a turn with its effect. Being allowed to use attack a unit that's been exhausted, didn't ever play that round, and deal extra free damage to it. Then you got Boss being a very good ambush unit, being 4/5 for 5 energy. Ambush as well, so you can like take things out before it gets going. And then because there's a lot of events, like Cunning has quite a lot of event cards, very nice ones, very control because there's a very control aspect. And when you play an event while he's on board, you do an extra 2 damage to a unit, which is very nice to get extra take like damage into units to kind of finish them off if you didn't finish them off already. And you got some very good units, and on the dark side, you got No Good to Be Dead's very good one. Now, with how the turn play structure in this game, you got the you do your action phase first, where you like play cards, play events, like deploy leader and things like that. You do that first, and then at the end of the turn, that's when you then do your whole like draw resource, untap everything, and then move on to the next turn. So rather than having like the charge and draw and stuff at the beginning of the turn, you have at the end of the turn. So with No Good to Me, you exhaust the unit and it becomes tapped for that round and for the next round as well, because when it was untapped would be at the end of the turn before going to the next one. So it wouldn't untap them, so you tap something down for that turn for essentially 2 turns, which is amazing. And then on the normal side of Cunning, we've got some pretty good units. You got Greedo, a very cheap one for the ground arena, and a nice thing where like not the most bulky, being 1 health, but hits quite hard at 3. And then when he's defeated, you can discard a top card of your deck. And if it's not a unit, because remember in like Cunning you have a lot of like event cards, then you get to deal an extra 2 damage to a ground unit, so you can do it a bit more, like finish something off that kills him. You've got some very good spaceships, and in like Outer Rim Headhunter and Strafing Gunship. Now Outer Rim Headhunter being quite a cheap one, not the strongest, but does have raid 1, so it doesn't hit hard when it's attacked. It does hit hard when it attacks itself, and if you keep Iden about deployed in the ground arena, you get the benefit of his on attack being able to tap down a non-leader unit if you control your leader when it attacks. You also have access to one of the most unique space units in the game, being Strafing Gunship. Now this is what normally when you come to like battle and like attacking things, only ground can attack ground and only space can attack space. So they can't intertwine, they can't interlink. So you can't have ground attack space, you can't have space attack ground. But Strafing Gunship breaks those rules by having an effect where it allows it to attack units in the ground arena. So this is the only unit in the game so far that can attack things in the other arena. And when it does, it also gets another benefit of being able to, if it attacks a ground unit card, you get to take 2 less damage from that defending unit. So if you attack something in the ground arena with this unit, you take 2 less damage back from whatever its attack stat would be. So it's a very nice card, very interesting one that like Cunning kind of had access to. So you can have that as something you can get if you choose Cunning. And then, like I said, Cunning has a lot of event cards. You've got some really good ones in ones like Waylay here, being a very cheap one at 3, allowing you to bounce any non-leader unit back to hand. So if your opponent like spends like in a later term like 8 player unit, you can just spend 3 energy to put that back in hand, and then they remember things come in exhausted, so they come in rested. So they've spent mostly their whole turn playing a unit, and you just for free bounce it back, for free resources back to the hand, meaning that they've wasted an entire turn to play something that then failed to really stick and go back to hand. While you still got probably hopefully resources to play more things and just take over the battle. You even got a very expensive one in Change of Heart, which seems expensive for 6, but it allows you to take control of a non-leader unit opponent controls and then give it back at the end of the turn. So your opponent plays something huge last turn and you've got the initiative, you can just when the turn starts, take it off them so you can use it and then give it back to the turn if you haven't won yet. So a very nice way to take things off your opponent that might be very strong, you want to use to attack them back, or just mean that they don't have access to attack to you. So that is it, and we also, because we're dark, we will also have access to cards that are just Villainy, so there are also cards that are just Villainy or Heroic in the game as well. So you have access to nice ones like Viper Pro Droid, allowing you very good stats for a cheap cost, and allow you to have an effect to look at your opponent's hand. You have things like Cell Block Guard and General Fears for the ground arena as well, like Cell Block being a very good unit, being very good stats for its cost, giving you Sentinel for that arena. And General Fears allowing you to power up if you go for Imperial focused deck, allowing you to power up all your other Imperials by 1/1 whites on board. And then Tide Advance being a really nice one, like a really nice base unit, more expensive. But when it played, if you're focusing around Imperials, which most of the dark side are, you get to give it extra 2 experience tokens to a never friendly Imperial unit. So you can make it 2/2 stronger on its stats, but you can't choose it itself because it does specify another, so it can't give it to itself. And then that's some of the benefits you get from the dark side as well. So dark side, both Heroic and Villainy both have additional units that adjust those stats, not like Cunning or anything like that. So you can have access to those ones. Now you may not be thinking now, what does it have access to with Villainy and Vigilance being like blue-black? Well, I thought I said that last to show what it has access to its own resources as just a leader. And that is some really nice cheap units, like Scout Bike Pursuer being like the more damage it takes, the more damage it does, and being quite a bulky one for a cheap unit. Death Trooper allowed to help finish things off with decent stats as well, and even power up Scout Bike Pursuer. Got Further 4 being a very good space unit, and Power Dark Side being a very good event, allowing your opponent, forcing your opponent to defeat unit control. Now this is one that benefits more when your opponent has less of a board than a bigger board. If they have a bigger board, that means they have more options to kind of want to sack off, so they can sack off the weakest one. Whereas if you've got less options, like only one unit on board, you have to sack that one off, and you're not giving them really a chance or a choice. And then for the later game, you have some really good removals, Blue Black has Vigilance and Villainy has very good access to removal. So you have things like Takedown, allow you to take out any unit with 5 cost less. This can even hit leaders like Iden herself, and it being cheap at 4. You can also have a Vanquish, which to take out any non-leader unit. So any unit that's not a leader, you can take out this. That's got 5, but it's worth it. You have Count Dooku as another way to kind of finish off things with 4 less HP by using this effect, but it does a bit more cost at 7, but then it does bring in a body with stats, being 5/4, which is not the best, but still pretty decent. You have Avenger being one of the more late game ones, which is once again we discuss. Very good stats, quite high cost, but then has an effect to make your opponent choose one of the non-leader units they control and defeat that unit when it's played or when it attacks. And this is really nice because once again, just like with Power Dark Side, the more units your opponent has means the more options you got to get rid of the weakest one they don't care about, or one that's already used up or attacked or something. But then if your opponent's got less options on board, less things on board, you're forcing them to lose things they probably don't want to lose. And then you have access to one of the best events in the game, and one of the most destructive, being Super Laser Blast. Now it's very expensive at 8, but it allows you to wipe all units off the board, being both yours and your opponent's. So you wipe your board, but you also wipe your opponent's board, and this is a nice one to use where if you're on the back foot and your opponent's swarming you the board, you can just take it all out and then start trying basically set the board back to turn 1. And the nice thing about this is that if you combo it with the ramp, command, you can get out this early and just take control of the board. And this will also trigger this is very nice because all these cards kind of trigger for Iden to allow her to kill your base by 1 each time a unit is destroyed. So these get a real nice benefit for that. Now that's it for this. So hopefully that's giving you a better understanding of how to build Iden Versio, and hopefully if you enjoy this lead and like the look of it, you can go ahead and build it and build it how you want to. Now, I think with this, normally like command is normally the most popular one to go with it because they're ramped to play out bigger things, and that's a great thing for the dark side. Is a nice thing, but you can choose if you want to go command, if you want to go double vigilance, if you want to go cunning or aggression. It's up to you, but hopefully this has helped you understand how to build the Iden leader. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and with the next one, we'll go over Chewbacca and understand how to build Chewbacca. So, thanks for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.